And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SC off. Bring in SC off. Off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Hello and welcome to another late night Starlink on the Wait. This is 39A. No, this is not Polaris Dawn. Polaris Dawn is delayed. Kevin, this is the wrong pad. We want Starlink from Slick 40. There we go. There we go. Welcome to another NSF live stream. Polaris Dawn has been delayed until tomorrow, but do not fret. We still have some delightful Falcon 9 action from Slick 40. That's the Starlink 86 mission, which is going to launch a whole bunch of Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. And I am being corrected on our back channel. It's not tomorrow, it's Friday for Polaris Dawn, so I am a big dumb idiot. I'm Jack Beyer for NSF. But thankfully, there's much smarter people on tonight's stream, including D Wise. D, how you doing?
Oh, I am doing just great. We got our cameras up from Polaris Dawn, and we are out here on the press site lawn looking at two vertical Falcon 9s, but one that is going to launch this morning.
Excellent. Chat, thank you for the 5x5s. So we know we're coming through loud and clear. Also, out in the field, braving the humidity, braving the mosquitoes, braving D's bad jokes. Max, how you doing?
Man, this the chaos and calamity has already started, and that is precisely why these late night Starlinks do be hitting different, everybody. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you may be watching from, and welcome to another chaotic night on Florida's Space Coast.
Indeed. I appreciate the Truman Show intro. And also, in the studio, we have the one, the only, Sawyer. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, especially because, as always, this isn't your ordinary Starlink. Getting in all the key phrases early, so, late night to be hidden different, not your ordinary Starlink. Remind me what else we got to hit later.
All right, well, I will shuttle, horses, bacon. Sawyer, I will be asking you exactly why this is not your ordinary Starlink here in a moment. But first, I have to acknowledge that KMR, Kevin Jan Michael Vincent Reed, is operating the stream. Thank you, Kevin, for doing that. That's the whole team. Y'all, you are part of the team, though. If you out in Chatland, in YouTube world, have any questions at NASA Spaceflight with your questions, we'll see them pop up in some software we have running in the background. But with that, with about 55 minutes to go until this Falcon 9 launches Starlink 86, let's talk about why this is a little bit different. Sawyer, what exactly kind of Starlinks is this mission launching?
Well, this is launching the V2 minis that we're used to. However, 13 of those include the Starlink Direct to Cell, which will be used essentially to create a cell phone tower in space. There's already partnerships with T-Mobile to make that happen. So they've slowly but surely adding those up into their current orbital configuration. And the rocket that will be flying it this time will be flying on a record 23rd flight.
So this will be the first Falcon 9 to hit 23 flights. Is that what you're saying, Sawyer?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because if we go all the way back, you got GPS 3, SVO4, SVO5, Inspiration 4, Starlink 4-5, Axiom 1, Starlink 4-10, Nilesat, Starlink 4-25-27-30, 5-1, 5-4, OneWeb 17, Arabsat 7B, Starlink 6-7-23-30-38, 44-49-59, and 10-3.
Thank goodness for that graphic we have on screen. Otherwise, I would have never been able to follow what you said. And as you can see, the barge that the booster is landing on is a shortfall of gravitas.
I mean, that rolls right off the tongue. Come on, that I could do that in my sleep.
I'm a little bit bummed that Polaris was delayed, because for Polaris Dawn to launch within hours of the same booster that launched Inspiration 4 would have been pretty cool. Max, are you bummed about this? Did you have any kind of photos planned for a dual launch streak or something like that, or how do you feel, Max? Give me a
You know
vibe
what?
check.
I honestly didn't make that connection of this being the same booster that launched Inspiration 4 literally until you just said it, which is honestly kind of embarrassing, but it is what it is. Yesterday when we were all somewhat convinced that they were going to try and launch both of them within like minutes of each other before, that obviously did not happen.
Right.
I plugged both trajectories into the Flight Club software. Thank you very much, Declan.
Thank you, Declan.
Thank you, Declan. A double streak shot was possible from here at the Kennedy Space Center because I am, spoiler alert, I am going to be on top of the VAB roof, weather permitting, for the launch of Polaris Dawn. And from that perspective, a double streak shot and like merged streak shot was possible. So really, that was the only shot I really had in mind to try and catch both of them, because obviously, while with our naked eyes, the pads seem to be in somewhat close proximity, they are indeed miles and miles apart for various reasons, mostly down to safety.
But yeah, from the VAB roof, that would be a pretty good angle, huh?
100%. And you're also at a good angle relative to the orbital inclination that both flights would be embarking on. So Starlink tonight is embarking on a 53-degree inclination, which is heading northeast. And then, of course, Polaris is launching on a 51.6-degree orbital inclination, which is equal to the inclination that the astronauts fly on to head to the International Space Station from Florida. But obviously, given their altitudes, they obviously are not heading to the International Space Station. But TLDR, they are both launching northeast. So if you are north of us, say in New Smyrna Beach, Daytona, Jacksonville, you are going to get a wonderful view of launch tonight, weather pending, and you have clear skies. Not to say that you won't if you are south of the Cape, say around Patrick Space Force Base, Fort Lauderdale, that any or anywhere in between. It's not to say that you'll have a bad view, but the rocket is launching away from you, so the arch is going to look much different and much smaller from your perspective. But yes, to answer your to answer your question, I did have one planned out in the event that both launches did happen on the same night or simultaneously to one another. But for various reasons, that has not happened and will not happen, we suspect, for a while. But it is SpaceX. It has not happened until it just might. So you never know.
Yeah, fair enough. Right off the bat, I do want to thank some people for the support. SpaceX Cowboy becoming a Padlet member, thank you. Homebound Traveler becoming a Padlet member, thank you. Pablo M becoming a Capcom member, thank you. All of our members, honestly, you're so key to what we do. And all of our member levels get different cool perks. At Capcom level and above, you get access to our Discord, which is awesome. A whole bunch of different cool channels in there. So, Pablo, pop into Discord and say hey. Apocalypse Cow, that's Danger Moo, gifting 10 Red Team memberships. So if you got a gifted membership, be sure to thank Danger Moo. Apocalypse Cow. Revhead gifting 5 Red Team memberships, and Booster 1058 gifting 1. Thank you all so much for the support, ensuring that we can continue to do what we do. D, give us a little bit of a sit rep down there in the Cape. What's the weather like? Is it cloudy? What are we expecting for tonight's launch?
Well, it is a pretty nice evening. Of course, it is Florida, so it is very, very humid, but there are lots of stars visible. There are some clouds, which notably clouds are the primary concern for tonight's launch. It's an 85% go, but cumulus cloud rule is the one that they're really keeping an eye on, whereas upper level wind shear, booster recovery weather, and solar activity are really not of any sort of concern. But yeah, we are sitting about 49 minutes away from liftoff. The mosquitoes are out in full force, and it is a beautiful night out here.
Beautiful night minus the mosquitoes. I'm a little bit terrified, D. We had insanely bad mosquitoes here in Starbase for like weeks, and then it was hot enough and dry enough for a number of days that they went away. But the last 2 days it's been rainy, and I'm worried. I'm worried for tomorrow night. So I am not getting eaten up right now, but I will be getting eaten up tomorrow in solidarity with y'all out there at the Cape.
Well, I have a work outfit I can recommend for those mosquito-filled nights.
Does it resemble a bee suit?
It does awfully resemble a bee suit. Yes, very, very, very similar.
Just goes to show how bad the mosquitoes are and how dedicated you and Max are. Thank you, Cape team, for doing what y'all do. Let's check in on the clock. It's T-minus 47 minutes and 50-ish seconds to go. Oh, look. It's the countdown clock there at the Cape, at the Kennedy Space Center press site, with the Polaris Dawn patch. But unfortunately, no Polaris Dawn tonight. That is now going to be Friday, as we mentioned at the top of the stream. So it goes. Space, I hate this expression. I hate this idiom, whatever you want to call it. Space is hard. I hate it. It shouldn't be hard. It's 2024. I don't want it to be difficult. But you know what? It's the truth. And
It's literally rocket science, although this has nothing to do with rockets. This has to do with Mother Nature.
it's weather science. That's one of those things, though. Whenever anyone's like, oh, why do we spend so much money on spaceflight? And it's like, bro, do you like weather forecasts? Because weather satellites are super important for that.
But then the irony of when a weather satellite delays because of weather.
Indeed.
Which-
So it goes.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the weather forecast for this particular Starlink launch is 85% go per the last forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron. And Polaris Dawn's issue wasn't necessarily to do with launch weather, but to do with the splashdown
Landing
weather
weather,
off
right?
the coasts of Florida about 5 days after liftoff.
Oh, so it was abort weather, not even booster landing weather. It was abort weather.
Not even abort weather, actual capsule landing weather. I believe we have a tweet from Jared Isaacman that kind of explains a little bit about what he means. Because, yeah, at first my thought was, oh, it's drone ship weather. No, it's recovery weather in case of an abort. No, per Jared, it says, our launch criteria are heavily constrained by forecasted splashdown weather conditions. With no ISS rendezvous and limited life support consumables, we must be absolutely sure of re-entry weather before launching, and as of now, conditions are not favorable tonight or tomorrow.
There you
That's
go.
what you don't hear very often.
You know what? I mean, I've already expressed on many of our streams my appreciation for Jared and the Polaris program, but this just furthers that appreciation. Like, detailed communication as to what's going on. Fantastic. Unfortunately, no Polaris Dawn tonight, but safety first. Let's jump right into it with some questions. T-minus 45 minutes to go. We're about, 6 minutes from fueling beginning, give or take?
About 30, yeah, T-minus 38 is when they give the go for it, with fueling beginning at T-minus 35.
All right, well, let's do some questions while we wait for fueling to start. Charles Hall is asking, do we have a clue which drone ship has the most landings? Has anyone checked the back channel where I asked Alex this question and Alex answered?
Yes, I have. It is one of my favorites. Of course, I Still Love You, which is now out on the West Coast.
Best Coast.
That has had 106 landing attempts, and 100 of them were successful.
I'm sorry, Max, is there something in your throat?
No, Jack. No, I'm merely disagreeing with you silently.
Okay, which state is the most populous state? Oh, I'm sorry, it's California. It must be the best coast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which state launches crew?
Not
I'm
tonight.
sorry, 99 have been successful so far. The second launch tonight should bring it up to 100 for Of Course I Still Love You.
Good deal. Yeah, there is a Vandenberg launch tonight. I believe it is about an hour after tonight's Starlink from the Cape. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how tonight goes. Maybe we cover both, depending on how they line up. But hopefully, this one out of the Cape, 8-6, goes on schedule. And hopefully I'm back in LA sometime soon, and we can start covering West Coast launches again.
But at least there were your stats for this particular flight as well that were just on screen. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. This is for the Cape, folks. JL London is asking, do you know if I can go to the Jetty Park Beach Pier? Doesn't Jetty Park close at sunset, Max?
So they actually close at 9 p.m. on normal operating days. But there are some launches, I think, on more high-profile launches like NASA crew missions, or say Falcon Heavy or Atlas V, or missions such as Polaris Dawn, that they do actually stay open for into the very early hours of the morning. I have not checked their schedule to see if they're going to be open for Polaris Dawn, but it is definitely worth checking out the website for Port Canaveral, or going to the gate over at Jetty Park and just asking the gate agent if they're going to remain open for it. With it being at 3:30 a.m. window opening, I would understand if they don't remain open. But considering the high profile nature of this mission, I would not be surprised also if they are open. So it's worth asking. It's worth finding out for sure.
Good deal. Max, how tall is the VAB? JS Web Productions is asking.
Oh boy, off the top of my head, I want to say it's around 525 feet.
Ding, 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 ding.
Hey! There we
On the
go.
dot.
Good deal. I don't remember the exact figure. All I know is that the VAB creates its own weather. It can rain inside of it or whatever. That's a common thing you hear about.
It's a common thing you hear about, but the PAOs here often claim that that's just a myth.
Really?
Whenever they take people in for tours, whether it be NASA Social or a private tour or whatever's lined up, that's one of the first rumors that they end up dispelling, which is kind of funny. But given the sheer scale of the VAB once you're inside it, let alone when you're next to it on the outside, once you're actually inside of it, inside the actual volume of the building, you can understand why some people would say that, because it is gargantuan in there.
Max, can you just talk about the feeling driving up to the VAB? I think it's the coolest thing when you first come into the gate, and then you're driving down, what is that, Kennedy Parkway or whatever it is, that main road. It's the most amazing feeling. Can you talk about that? Sorry, Jack, I'm being a host.
No, it is. You're right. Please, Max, please. And I have a tie-in as well. But Max, go ahead.
The first time I ever came to KSC was January 28th, 2019, and that was by far and away the single most pivotal day of my entire life, coming here for the first time. And I'm never going to forget being on the tour bus from the visitor complex, making that left turn onto State Route 3, Courtney Parkway, heading up toward the VAB, and seeing the size of the VAB growing over the tops of the trees as you get closer and closer and closer. And then if you're not heading over toward the Saturn V Center, you make a right on Saturn Causeway, and you are right next to the VAB, looking directly at the eastern face of it, which is, of course, where the American flag and the meatball are staring at you dead in the face.
Yeah, the road that you can see on the right-hand camera view that we often see Falcon 9s and encapsulated payloads and fairings and that car that's driving by right now. That's the parkway you're talking about, right?
Correct. Yes. And I've been, both myself and Dee, we've been fortunate enough to make that drive now ourselves hundreds of times to this point in the years that we've been covering spaceflight from here. And I have to say, the feeling never gets old. Every single time I see the VAB getting closer out of my windshield, the feeling is always the exact same.
Absolutely.
And every single time that feeling comes up, I always think back to that one cold January day in 2019 where everything just kind of came together and really turned my life in the direction that it is now into, of course, talking with you wonderful people. Bless you. Dee just sneezed. I'm not sure if you guys heard that.
Oh, we did. We did. No, we're all glad for that turn, Max. But my tie-in here is, of course, I'm in Starbase, so I have Starbase on the brain, even though this is not a Starbase stream. But the VAB is such a giant and imposing structure that you can see it from miles and miles away. And as you drive towards it, if you're fortunate enough to be able to drive on KSC property, you can get closer and closer and closer, and it's just looming there, just getting bigger and bigger, even though you're miles away. It's absolutely wild. But there's a parallel to that, and it's if you've ever got a chance to go to KSC, or if you ever get a chance to go to Starbase, a very similar thing happens as you drive towards the launch site and the production site here in Starbase. As you're leaving Brownsville, there's a certain point where you can see very, very easily the towers and production site, mega bays and all of that. And they're just such massive structures that you drive and drive and drive, and like 20 minutes goes by, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger in your windscreen. I love this stuff. Hooray,
And
rocket infrastructure.
And here's the thing with that ride as well. Again, I've also done it, maybe not hundreds, but close to. It's not just getting there, because obviously you get there and oh my gosh, it imposes upon you. But then you're just waiting for a launch and you're realizing dead ahead of you is a rocket that's about to go to space, and just to your side is this giant vehicle assembly building, and in your head you're like, oh, this is normal. Also, which it's not. It never is. And also, there's something about leaving the VAB, when you leave KSC, seeing the VAB in your rearview mirror and going, I'll be back.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Like that last point in particular, absolutely. And then it's a whole other different feeling when you are allowed to go inside.
Yes.
Because it's big, it's gargantuan driving on the Saturn Causeway, driving next to it. But then when you are in a vehicle heading right towards the front gate, right in front of the VAB, and then pulling up right next to the door, right underneath the Artemis sign on the extension coming out toward the east, then you step inside, and then you're like, holy cow.
Flex. I still haven't been inside or on the roof of the VAB. No, I still haven't.
That's so hard to believe, but wow. That
I got to see Jimmy Buffett perform inside of it.
What?
Excuse me, what?
He did a special acoustic performance after STS-135 for all the employees. And, people were having drinks and celebrating, and somehow they let me into that as well. So, yeah, got to see Jimmy Buffett perform inside the VAB.
That is the most absurd Sawyer flex I could I would never have guessed. Wow.
Can I say, it was a lights out day, also like at 39A right now, where they just turned the lights off in the pad about a minute ago.
Nice. Nice work.
Wasted away in VABville? I don't know.
Try harder. Booster 1058, they said sending mosquito repellent spray. Thank you, Booster 1058.
Greatly appreciated.
Isaac Chapman gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much. Mark Mither? I'm sorry if I'm ruining your last name. Thank you for becoming a Pad Rep member. And Rob Van Roy also gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you all so much. Sawyer, I suspect this one is for you. A question from Space Wolf asking, do the 45th, meaning the Space Launch Delta 45, who is in charge of weather ops there at the Cape, they say, do they look at weather for the entire flight path, including booster landing, or just around KSC and splashdown weather?
No, they keep an eye out through the entire part of the corridor that they cover on the East Coast. So, in fact, when they put out what they call their launch mission execution forecast, when they include the probability of violating weather constraints, they have a section called Additional Risk Criteria, which looks at upper level wind shear, solar activity, and in the case of a mission with a landing like this, it has the booster recovery weather, and then you get something like Polaris Dawn, and that also has ascent corridor recovery weather.
Good deal. We have a question here from Kyler asking, wasn't Polaris Dawn supposed to launch from Slick 40? I don't think so, right, Max?
I mean, there were rumors going back and forth. I don't know if we had any official paperwork or notifications to say that, yes, it was going to fly from Slick 40. I mean, that was the great suspicion and assumption for a while that Polaris Dawn and, of course, Jared's crew were going to be the first to, I guess, break that tower in and be the first crew to fly from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at Slick 40. But it is obviously, as we can see from our cameras, obviously stacked at LC-39A. So, but the next flight, or the first flight with crew from Slick 40 is currently slated to be Crew 9, which is I think dated to launch on September 24th. So, not too much longer from now, less than a month actually.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, they may have been internally. We had no knowledge of it, but at the moment, obviously, they are at Pad A. So the first crew to launch from Slick 40 will be Crew 9.
That mission has no significant history markers whatsoever to it either.
Oh, boy.
But on a brighter note, propellant load has started. So they are going for tonight's attempt.
Excellent. You can see the tweet from SpaceX right there. They are in propellant load. D, you see any frost?
I'm trying to take a look. I think I see a little bit of vapor potentially near the bottom. I don't see a solid frost ring quite yet. So
I see
as
a little bit of condensation, just a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I do see that now. It is very subtle at first, but that frost ring will begin to rise as the propellant is loaded into Falcon 9, and it will certainly become a lot more obvious in just a few moments, honestly.
Excellent.
Definite vapor showing now. It was more difficult to show at first because this booster has, as you can probably see, all those white streaks going down the tank structure. That is where the teams have wiped away all of the soot to inspect all of the welds all over the booster, and they also wiped the. I don't even know if I would call it the perpendicular weld. Like it's pretty much at the common dome between the LOX and RP1 tanks is where they wiped away, and that is also white as the tank structure would be when it's being filled with cryogenic fuel, and obviously there's no denying it now. There's 100% vapor forming at the bottom of the LOX tank.
Oh yeah, it's already grown. The amount of frost and the amount of condensation we're seeing come off that first stage has already grown significantly as SpaceX continues to load propellants into the vehicle, which is exactly what we want to see at T-minus 31 minutes to go. Arturo is asking how many flights for booster. We touched on this at the start of the stream, but Sawyer, what's this booster and how many flights has it done? I know it's 22, but let's talk about it again.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, if you expect me to run through the whole list again, I'm out of breath for that. This is B-1062 making its 23rd flight, which is a record for Falcon 9. It's been about 2 months since the last time it launched. However, it still currently holds the record for the shortest turnaround time between missions of 21 days, although that was a little while ago. This one, again, as mentioned, is about a 2-month difference between when it launched 10-3 and now 8-6.
Good deal. I always wonder what the variability is there in the turnaround time. But yeah, we won't make you read the whole list again. But thank you for answering Arturo's question there. Also, thank you to Elizabeth Hopner for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. That's honestly so generous. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And Too Cool Hip Dude is asking, what's the gift membership about? Well, you know what? Very generous people can gift memberships to folks in chat. I believe it's based on people who are active in chat. And I believe there's a setting that you need to turn on in your YouTube settings so that you can get gifted a membership if you have not been. And if you're like, why haven't I gotten one? There's a setting you need to turn on. So do that. But you know what? We're not all just sitting here hanging out. This is work, right? So the gifted memberships mean a lot because the membership program allows us to do what we do. So the gifted memberships, not only is it a way of supporting us, but the people who do that, the very nice people who do that, are also helping out people in chat who might not otherwise be able to have a membership. It's really cool. So thank you to folks for doing that. Ooh, we have an X post here, a Zeet. I don't even know what I should call it. From Max. Max, what are we looking at here? This looks like when they transported the booster out to the pad.
Yep, this is the rig that they use to transport the boosters to and from Hangar X and launch pads, whether it be 39A or pad 40. They transport it horizontally because that is how it is also transported from the factory in Hawthorne over to McGregor and then also to here across the highways. And that is also actually what helped determine the diameter of the booster for flight and also just for, I guess, legality on fitting on U.S. highways. But this is 1062 rolling down the Center Causeway right in front of the VAB and the press site. And it was a very well-timed visit because I was just about to leave and I got word that this booster was going to come by. So, of course, it was worth stopping and taking a few photos of.
Nice.
And of course, here you can very clearly see how dark the booster is in color now with the layers and layers and layers of soot all over it. Both on the LOX and the RP-1 tanks. And you can also very obviously see where the booster has been wiped down to have its weld structures inspected after each flight. Very, very dark, very sooty booster. And looks very, very weird where all the soot has been wiped off. But I guess that's what helps make this booster very unique.
I always wonder, and yes, thank you, Max, A, for these great photos, and B, for that great explanation. But I do always wonder, there's ultrasonic ways to inspect welds. There's X-ray ways to inspect welds. There's also visual ways. But, what exactly, I would love to know, necessitates wiping off the soot? Is it because it has to be visually inspected in addition to other methods as well? It's always kind of silly to me that they need to do that.
I mean, I'm sure it's some combination of both. And truthfully, I don't have a real answer to that just because I don't know. 100%, but yeah, I would assume it's some combination, of course, inspecting it visually, but also the soot might get in the way of whatever scans they have scanning. Of course, the metallic structure of the tank walls. I'm not 100% sure, but obviously they have their reasons, so I don't doubt them.
Right, makes sense. Sawyer, Stephen Lewis is asking, why scrub Polaris? I mean, the short answer is safety. But we talked about the tweet we had there from Jared. Any further thoughts on why scrub Polaris? I mean, you don't mess around when you're launching crew, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, they've pretty much said it. The first time there was an issue with helium leak on some ground support equipment, there was a quick disconnector that wasn't fully connecting as it should, so they delayed it by a day. And then this one, again, they are concerns over splashdown weather on the coasts, on both east and west coasts of Florida. This is a 5-day mission, so they're trying to look at the conditions in the ocean 5 days from now. Since this isn't an ISS mission, they only have a certain amount of supplies on board, so their time that they can actually spend in orbit is limited based off of those consumables. So they want to try and launch with the best potential splashdown weather by day 5 as possible, so they don't have to go into any of their extra reserves.
Yeah, you want to maintain that margin for margin's sake. You don't want to just use it up willy-nilly. And they are, as a reminder, on Polaris Dawn doing the first commercial EVA, and that includes depressurizing the entire Dragon cabin. Even the people not going outside are going to be in a depressurized environment. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Dragon Resilience, which is the Dragon that's going to be used on Polaris Dawn, has been outfitted with additional consumables specifically for that reason. And so
Yep.
it's all part of the trades in that mission. You want to maintain that margin so that you can safely execute the stated goals of EVA and all the other cool things they're doing on Polaris.
Yeah, I mean, they literally had to add nitrogen tanks that'll help repressurize the spacecraft once they're done with the spacewalk, and more than one in case one of them fails. You can read all about it in an article that was written by myself on nasaspaceflight.com.
Nice. Mods, can we get that spammed in chat, please, for those of our illustrious viewers who may have not been all the way caught up on Polaris? Well, guess what? Now you have a couple extra days to do so. Speaking of Polaris, JL London is asking, what is the likelihood of Polaris Dawn taking off on Friday? D, you want to try and tackle that one?
Sure, yeah, that is a good question. Let me take a look at the most recent weather forecast. So the weather forecast from the 45th for a 48-hour delay, which is what we would be looking at in this case, shows a couple potential concerns, including the cumulus cloud rule, flight through precipitation rule, and there's also low to moderate ascent corridor recovery weather. And of course, on top of that, there are still those concerns looking at the 5 days out from that launch opportunity for their splashdown to make sure those are good. And so that isn't directly accounted for on this launch mission execution forecast, but hopefully things will improve and the concerns that caused the scrub of tonight will have cleared.
Yeah, and it's not like Polaris is trying to hit like a transfer window or, you know, a rendezvous with something. They're going to their own destination and they are taking their time to do it right. So that's just fine.
However,
Absolutely.
there are times that they can't launch as well, because part of it is the record-setting fact that they're going to be going up to a highest apogee of 1,400 kilometers, farther than any other human has orbited the Earth since the Apollo program. So they're choosing these crazy hours in the middle of the morning to deal with the reduced risk of micrometeoroid and other space junk, basically, that could hit the spacecraft.
Right. Makes sense. While we're talking about weather, Johan is asking, how many weather wings are there? There's Space Launch Delta 45. There's also, on the West Coast, Space Launch Delta 30. So there's two.
45th for the win.
Is there a separate one for Wallops? I don't actually know the answer to this.
That's a really good question.
Does the 45th cover Wallops or not? I don't actually know.
I don't think so. I think Mars, which is the agency that manages the Wallops facility, handles that. I'm not 100% sure.
It is the Wallops Range Weather Office.
Copy.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know if you want to count that as 3, maybe 2.5, but there you go, Johan.
And there are a lot more. I just Googled this, I have to be honest. There are a lot of different weather squadrons. Fort Lewis has the first combat weather squadron. A whole bunch of different Air Force stations have their weather squadrons.
Right.
Looking through them, there's a 607th. I don't think that necessarily means that there are 607 weather squadrons, but there are certainly more than the ones that we are familiar with due to their correlation with spaceflight directly.
Good deal.
Speaking
yeah,
of
there's
spaceflight
there's a
directly,
hurricane hunters and everything. Sawyer, you're
What
going
ab-
to talk about the T-minus 20-minute vent. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, what about vent hunters? Because there it is, the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent. Sorry to interrupt there. It's
No,
just
you're good. I was going to
it's-
say, speaking of things we're familiar with, it's the T-minus 20-minute vent, which goes to show that everything is progressing in the countdown smoothly. Sawyer, why do they do this vent?
yours was better. Uh,
Yeah, well,
The
you should
reason that
you should have given me a chance to do it, buddy.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm sorry. Bump me down to A tier. It's okay.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ouch. Anyway, the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent is done because the second stage, excuse me, they start loading it with RP1, rocket propellant 1, the refined form of kerosene, which is at a more close to ambient temperature. Next up, now that that's done, they'll be loading in the liquid oxygen. However, that is super cooled. So what they do is they prepare the lines, they sort of chill down the lines to be ready for that super cooled liquid oxygen that should start flowing through it into the second stage at T-minus 16 minutes.
Excellent. Well, everything progressing as we would hope. T-minus 19 minutes and change to go until liftoff of Falcon 9, launching Starlink 86. In the meantime, we'll continue to answer some of y'all's questions. So keep the questions coming at NASA Spaceflight with any questions you may have, and we'll continue to run through a whole bunch of them. Here we go. Here's one from Kyler asking, what happened to B1060? Wasn't it the flight leader for a while? Why is this booster, this is me asking now, why is this booster the one that's going to break the 23 launch record?
I guess I'll take that one. I believe that booster was expended on a previous flight. So at this point, that means that the only one that's still active with it is 1062, one of the older ones in the fleet. There's a couple that are in the 20s still right now. But that one, because I guess of its age and the mission parameters for that particular flight it was on, was expended.
Good deal. Smurfette is asking, do you know if Polaris Dawn mission is still a go? It is not. Polaris Dawn is now Friday night. Or, wait, Friday morning? Friday morning.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Let's see. Speaking of Polaris Dawn, Johan is also asking, why not let the two other people walk as well on the EVA? They're also in spacesuits and all. I believe Jared has talked about this a little bit. There is it's complex. You have to have a tether. You have to have your EVA hoses and whatnot, like your life support hoses. So 2 people is already complicated enough. To have 4 people tethered and hosed in, and it just becomes sort of a mess, right, Max?
Absolutely. And I think also Sarah and Jared are going to be using and utilizing those special contact lenses for their EVA as well. And also their helmets are outfitted with cameras, whereas Kid or Scott Poteet, as he says his name as, and Anna, their helmets are not equipped with that camera, and also they will not be wearing those contact lenses. So I don't know the exact reason why it's 2 and 2 and not all 4 of them. I'm sure there is a safety margin built into that procedure as well. But that's pretty much all I've known. And I'm sure Jared has said more about it, but I just cannot pull it up at the moment.
No worries.
I'm sure part of it is logistical as well, based off of where the seats are inside Dragon. But
Yeah, good
in
point.
general, it's worth noting that these are individual spacewalks. It's not like at the ISS where you're going to have EV1 and EV2 out at the exact same time. It's going to be the first person goes out, then comes back in. Then the second person goes out, then comes back in. The whole entire spacewalk from depress to repress should be about 2 hours. So you wouldn't even have time to get all 4 people out there too.
Good deal. Coming back to tonight's mission, we have a question here from it's Johan. Johan just has all the good questions tonight. They're asking, does all that soot affect booster performance at all? I mean, they did not paint the shuttle tanks because of weight. We've talked about this one a lot. I mean, a lot of people want to know, what effect does that soot have on the performance of Falcon 9? Do they have to factor that in? How does that all work, Sawyer? Do we even know?
The weight that it adds is absolutely minuscule. The difference is with the external tank, you are physically adding the paint on. The paint has weight. It's a very large external tank. You're talking adding 200 pounds to the entire stack of just paint, when instead you could be using that 200 pounds to bring up cargo or experiments or things like that. This is different. This is just soot. This is because of the carbon-based reaction that happens, essentially. As it goes into the re-entry portion, it flies through the soot, and there's a whole scientific explanation, but to keep it in the simplest basic terms, it flies through the soot, which goes on top of it, and soot is very light. So it doesn't add any significant weight that they can't handle.
Right. Falcon 9 famously uses supersonic retro propulsion, which is just a fancy... I just like saying that, but it fights fire with fire. As it comes in and hits the hottest part of entry heating, it ignites its engines. That's the entry burn that we always talk about, that we will see on tonight's mission. And that entry burn means that Falcon 9 is flying through its own exhaust, and Falcon 9 is powered by liquid oxygen and RP-1, and it's not like a full flow stage combustion, etc. Nope, it's just an open cycle engine. And therefore, well, that plus a variety of other reasons means the exhaust from the Merlin engines is actually quite sooty. So it's flying through its own exhaust, and that is why it gets sooty. Not because it's like charred by re-entry or anything like that. It's literally just from its own sooty exhaust protecting itself against the re-entry heating, because rocket exhaust is hot, but it's not quite as hot as re-entry plasma. So, hey, it works out.
And it's also worth noting that the soot comes from the fact that RP-1 is a carbon-based fuel. And, of course, that soot is a byproduct of the combustion between the RP-1 and the LOX. So, and of course, the byproducts of that burn, the soot from the exhaust, of course, as we've said, the booster is flying back through its own plume, essentially. And that's where the soot buildup comes from.
Yep. Of course, we have to answer this one. Homer Gonzalez is asking, any potential dates for Starship Flight 5? I've said this on Starbase Update, which you should all be watching weekly. My current guess, and this is a guess, I want to be perfectly clear. I'm guessing. I don't know anything. I have no little birdies. My guess, based on what I've seen in the past and what I'm seeing right now, is second half of September to first half of October. Dee, would you agree or disagree with that assessment?
I think that sounds like a very solid assessment. That would that seems to be what I would think here, and it is a launch I can't wait for. That is for sure. But yeah, that seems like a pretty good guess for when it might be. Guess is not the right word.
Yeah, I mean, well, guess is definitely the right word. Max, what do you think?
Maybe a better word would be guesstimate, but I would absolutely I would agree. I would honestly say second half of September over October. I have this really weird sneaking suspicion that while a lot of people suspect that Starship Flight 5 might slip into October, I think it's going to potentially surprise a lot of people and fly in the second half of September, if not closer to the middle of the month. I don't know. I could be dead wrong. I'm not sure. But that would be my current guesstimate.
Yeah, logical. Sawyer, any thoughts?
Exact same time as Crew 9, just to make our lives difficult.
Oh,
Stop
don't
it.
you dare
Stop
go there,
it.
Sawyer. Stop it. Stop it.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? But yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to catch Starship Flight 5, do not fret. There will be plenty of indications and milestones coming down the line, and stay tuned to NASA Spaceflight on all your social channels, whether it's YouTube or X or Instagram or whatever, because as soon as we know anything, you'll know something. Fearless Studios, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. And Fearless Studios also with a super chat asking about when Flight 5 will happen. Well, hopefully you just listened to everything we just said.
It launches when it launches.
Yeah, sure enough.
Soon,
I mean,
TM.
The thing with Starship launches, if you haven't figured it out by now, is it's very milestone based. And until we have vehicles back at the pad, until we start getting the various indications that we expect to see ahead of a Starship launch, like not Mars, or FAA authorization, or even just messaging from SpaceX themselves, you can just sort of each week until we get those indications, push your estimate by about a week. But yeah, I think you're right, Max. I think September is still absolutely on the table, but we'll have to just wait and see what happens. But we don't have to wait and see much longer. Is Falcon 9 launching Starlink 8.6 out of Slick 40? Somebody unmuted. Who unmuted? Who wants to talk? Go.
I was going to ask you, why do they have to say not Mars before they launch?
Because you don't want a wayward boat in any sort of exclusion zone. We've seen many times before launches delayed from that exact thing, from wayward boats. In fact, on Shuttle Sunday this week, we talked about, I think it was STS-51B? That came after C, right? I think that one was delayed.
It went CDB.
Yeah, I think B was delayed by a wayward boat. I could be wrong. Either way, many launches have been delayed by a wayward boat, including Falcon 9. Max, do you remember the one that was delayed by the cruise ship? Which one was that?
I was just going to mention that. Probably the one that has scarred most people here the most was the CSG-2 mission back in January or early February of 2022. I think it was Harmony of the Seas from Royal Caribbean. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me on the ship. I think it was Harmony of the Seas that violated the keep-out zone and scrubbed the launch at about T-minus 30 seconds or so, maybe less. It was very frustrating. It was quite frustrating because it was right at sunset. It was a perfectly clear sky, and the light was delicious. But then over all the radios and all the phones, we hear hold, and everyone just lets out the most frustrated and oh my God, you could hear it from like 3 miles away. People were, in myself too, because I wasn't living here at that time, and I was supposed to fly home the next day, and I had to extend 2 more days to actually see it fly. But yeah, CSG-22 did scrub for pretty much a whole week, but the last scrub was because of a cruise ship going too far.
And you were right, it was Harmony of the Seas.
Fantastic.
I just realized that Kevin was making a Mars joke.
Yeah.
Not Mars. I did.
Well, they haven't gone to Mars yet. Still working on Earth orbit.
That completely went over my head.
Yeah, I was gonna let you roll with it.
You know what else is going over your head in about 7 minutes?
Not mine. I'm in Texas.
Well, ours. It's Falcon 9.
Excellent. Yeah, we are just under 7 minutes to go. We are about 5 minutes from the T-minus 2 minute event, which is similar to the T-minus 20 minute event. We'll talk about that when it happens. But in the meantime, I want to thank Snot Garden, perhaps our regular with the worst name. I'm sorry, buddy, but you have a terrible name. But thank you for the 5 gifted Red Team memberships. If you got a gift from Snot Garden, be sure to thank them. What a sentence that I just said.
Come on, Jack, you gotta chill.
Just like Falcon 9?
Just like the 9 Merlin 1D engines as we pass the T-minus 7 minute mark.
Excellent. Engines chilling down because you don't want to thermal shock your spaceflight hardware. You want it to be the appropriate temperature to receive the super cold propellants and burn them in the appropriate way. Speaking of propellants, JS Webb is asking, why does SpaceX use load and go for their rockets? Do you want to take this one? Why is SpaceX using load and go?
Sure, I can definitely touch on that a bit. So it has to do with a combination of the performance and their use of supercooled RP1 and their liquid oxygen. So they are loading these super cooled propellants, and basically once it's full, from the moment it starts loading, all of that propellant is heating up, getting closer to ambient temperature, and also expanding. And so they are continuing to load and then top off towards the end of the count. But at the same time, all of that propellant is expanding. And so they need to maximize their performance here. And there may be some more specifics that potentially Sawyer can touch on if I've missed a couple things here.
No, you pretty much hit it.
I mean, I'm not a super smart science guy, but it's all about Newton's law, right? You need to be able to throw stuff out of the back end of the rocket to accelerate yourself into orbit. And the denser the stuff that you're throwing out, the more thrust you're getting out of it. And one way you can make things denser is by cooling it way down. And that is what SpaceX does. It's a way that they can eke out just a little bit more performance from Falcon 9. So they use superchilled propellants, and that means everything is tied to a very specific timeline based on the temperatures of those propellants all the way from when they start fueling at like T-minus 38 minutes. But now we are at T-minus 4 minutes and change. D and Max, do we need to let you guys go and do your camera things? Yes. All right, cool.
Yes, that would be great. I was actually adjusting a camera setting. That was the reason for said delay. We are getting close to launch, so we are definitely going to go hands-on with our cameras here. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Max and D, we'll see you on the other side. Thank you for braving the mosquitoes, and thank you for braving the Florida humidity. Go, Cape Team, go. In the meantime, Sawyer and I will hold it down at T-minus 3 minutes and 30 seconds really quickly. Man's on Mars. Thank you for the super chat. They say new shipbuilding code. All cruise ships require a landing pad. I'm here for it. And Don Porter, thank you for the super chat as well. Y'all, the support means the world to us because we love what we do. We really do. We wouldn't be doing it otherwise. And we would not be able to do any of this without y'all's support. So thank you so much. It honestly means the most. Sawyer, 3 minutes to go. Looks like Falcon 9 is nice and fully fueled. What are we about to see in about, I don't know, 30 to 50 seconds or so?
Well, we're almost fully fueled at this point. We should be wrapping up right around now. The first stage, that should be fully loaded with propellants, the RP-1, and the liquid oxygen. That'll be followed at about T-minus 90 seconds or so-ish by the completing of the loading of the second stage with propellants. And then, right now, they've already retracted the transporter erector 1.8 degrees away from the vehicle. And they'll continue to count down until especially T-minus 1 minute. When Falcon 9 enters startup, the onboard computers take control. That's also when the tanks are pressurized to flight levels. Hopefully we get the go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds, with ignition happening at T-minus 3 seconds.
Excellent. Well, T-minus 2 minutes to go. You can begin to hear the sounds of Falcon 9 coming alive on the pad. I always love this phase of the pre-launch timeline.
Stage 2 lock flow is complete.
Rocket really does feel alive. And there you can hear from the loop, LOX load complete on stage 2. You can see it nice and frosty. Gosh, that is a super sooty fairing. So did we get any info from SpaceX on the fairings on this one?
They do not always say how many times or if they've been reflown, but I think it's safe to say this one, this half at least, has definitely been flown. I didn't get to see the other
Gas
half.
launch closeouts has started.
All right, launch closeout started. 1 minute and 20 to go.
That vent, T-minus 2-ish minute vent. Purging the line of all of those super cool liquid oxygen that I was using, making sure the line is clear because you don't want fire next to gaseous oxygen, excuse me.
Yep, that would be bad. Here we go, 1 minute to go. Falcon 9 will enter startup. We should hear that call out.
On a slight delay.
Any second now.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There you go. That means Falcon 9 itself is in control. If it sees anything it doesn't like, it will abort itself without the need for human intervention, but hopefully it doesn't. And in about 45 seconds or so, there you go. LD says go for launch. We will see this rocket lift more Starlink satellites into orbit. So are you excited?
Always.
Indeed. All right, well, weather willing, rocket willing, let's send some more Starlinks into space. T-minus 10 or so. Watch out for that green flash at the base of the rocket. That's the triethyl aluminum triethyl borane igniting the Merlin engines. There we go. And liftoff of Falcon 9 carrying Starlink 8-6 into low Earth orbit. Let's listen in.
Falcon is pitching downrange. Check conversion.
All right, vehicle's already through max Q, as you can hear. I almost don't want to talk over the sound. It just sounds so good.
Impact chill has started.
Quite crackly and loud tonight, for sure.
Yeah, and the VAB squeal was extra nice and loud, too. Excellent. You can see Falcon 9's exhaust plume expanding as the vehicle ascends into thinner and thinner atmosphere. Slayer, how long until stage SEP?
About 25 seconds or so. That's when you'll have MECO first, main engine cutoff, when they shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines, followed by stage SEP, as you mentioned, separation of the first and second stage, and then SES1, second engine start 1, which is when they ignite the single Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2.
Excellent. Fantastic track from the Cape team tonight. I'm not sure if it's Max or D, but there you can see the exhaust plume getting thinner and thinner. And there is
Absolutely.
MECO. You can see it on the SpaceX stream.
Yep.
Stage separation confirmed.
Hey, there you go. Wow. And you can see the
Recognition.
east coast of the U.S.
The best coast.
On the left-hand side, you can see the view from the inner stage of Falcon 9 first stage, and now you can see the grid fins getting roasted by that Merlin vacuum exhaust. Look at that. What a view.
Always beautiful view. And then, of course, as it gets higher up, the plume continued
Fairing
to expand.
separation
Our ground
confirmed.
camera is still able to catch that.
I believe that was Max still tracking the second stage. Fantastic work. Love to
And
see
that was
it.
confirmation of fairing separation, the two fairing halves separating away. Those will parachute down and actually be reused again, hopefully.
Look at that. You can really see the exhaust plume expansion. That is fantastic. Second stage
Stunning. That is still stage 2.
continuing to power those satellites into orbit as the first stage gets ready to head back and land on a barge in the middle of the ocean, which I cannot underscore as many times as we've seen it happen. What, 300 times
Vehicles
now?
are on a nominal trajectory.
It's just insane.
Yeah, this one, the shortfall of gravitas, is located about 620 kilometers downrange, ready to catch.
And you can see, well, first off, you can see on Max's track, look how much that plume has expanded. That is absolutely wild. And then if we go back to the SpaceX stream, you can see the booster is at an altitude of 119 kilometers, and it's still climbing.
Actually, it should just hit apogee this very second. See the speed stopped?
Yep.
That should mean now that it hit the highest point
There
that
you
it's
go, and
going
you
to
can
hit
see
on
this,
its current trajectory.
and you can see the speed start to increase, and now it's at 118. Now it's falling back towards the Earth. Fantastic. A lot of times you don't necessarily think of that. It was the same thing with the shuttle SRBs. Even after SEP, they still have
Both vehicles
upwards momentum.
continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Wow, Max still tracking the second stage. Way to go.
Unbelievable.
This is not easy to do. Fantastic work from the Cape team. There you go. You can see the second stage piling on the speed as the first stage gets a little bit faster as the gravity of Earth pulls it back, and it gets ready to commence its entry burn here in just a moment.
As mentioned so far, everything looking good with the telemetry, with altitudes, with everything, with both vehicles. So we're on track right now.
Good deal. And Sawyer, how much longer till we get that entry burn we were talking about earlier, where Falcon 9 protects itself from the heating of re-entry with its own exhaust fire?
Yeah, that should be in
Both
about
stages on a nominal
15-ish
trajectory.
seconds. About a little over 6 minutes and 12 seconds in. Of course, all times vary because it is based off of data from the active flight, not
Right.
just guesstimates from the ground.
Right. I always wonder, how much authority does Falcon 9 first stage itself have? And we recently got to see.
Startup.
Well, there you go. There's entry burn of Falcon 9. We recently got
Stage
that
1 FTS has saved.
that factory tour of Blue Origin from friend of the channel, Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut. And one of the things Jeff said in that is that New Shepard measures the winds on the way up so that it knows better how to control itself on the way down. I always wonder if Falcon 9 does this like a similar thing. Either way.
Yeah, because
Go ahead.
that one was about 11 seconds after what was planned on the paper, but that just goes to show the
Both
rocket
vehicles
controlling
following a
its own
nominal trajectory.
And nominal at that.
Nominal. A little bit of plasma coming through the grid fins there. Absolutely gorgeous as the second stage continues to do its thing and power those Starlinks into orbit. Coming up on landing burn of the booster, and then shortly after, second engine cutoff 1. That'll be when the second stage shuts off its engine for the first time.
Those should happen relatively close to each other.
Right. I don't know that I've ever seen them this far apart from each other on the timeline. Usually it's like they're right on top of each other, right?
That's about right.
Stage
It's about
1
15
transonic.
seconds or so.
Stage 1 transonic. Hopefully we get some good landing views from the booster.
And hopefully some landing sound, too.
Or from the drone ship. Right, because ASOG has microphones on it.
It does.
All right, well, just a moment away from that. Fingers crossed. Let's see what we can see.
2.5 kilometers up.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Look at the velocity just getting scrubbed off.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Coming through the clouds. Gorgeous. There's ASOG.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Bingo! Right in the center. Oh!
Oh,
Oh,
oh
no!
no! Oh no!
No, 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 no!
And that's not
That's unfortunate.
nominal.
Oh, no.
I just caught the tail end of that. Oh my gosh.
You know,
That marked the end of a 267
Go.
consecutive successful landing streak.
it's unfortunate. Clearly an issue with the booster on landing there, but that is a secondary objective. We have SECO on the second stage, which means the Starlink satellites, which is the primary objective. Sorry about that. It means the Starlink satellites, which are the primary objective of this mission, are in their appropriate orbit and will be doing their thing. Oh man, though.
Yeah, that's priority number 1, is that the satellites are successfully deployed.
That's not something you see every day.
No, it is not.
No.
No, in fact, the last time we saw it was when 1062 and 1058 were going back and forth as to who was going to be fleet leader. And ironically, 1062 appears to have suffered a similar fate. Unfortunate to see, but it is always worth keeping in mind that booster recovery is not mission critical. So, still a bummer. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but at the same time, this was the booster's 23rd flight, and I have to wonder if SpaceX was testing anything out. And I don't even necessarily mean testing any changes, but we know that the Falcon 9 landing legs have crush cores in them. Perhaps one of the legs didn't lock. I don't want to speculate, but this is the 23rd flight of this booster. Normally, with every other rocket on the planet, you launch it once and it goes in the drink. So, yes, a little bit unfortunate. Clearly an issue with the landing there, but 23 launches ain't bad.
Yeah, that's still a record.
The inherent risk when it comes to being a Falcon 9 fleet leader is that you are literally in unknown and uncharted territory. And that has been the case ever since they pushed beyond 10 flights, and we all were wondering when Falcon 9 was going to pop because of the stress and reuse a couple years ago. And now they've gone up to 23 flights without the booster failing on ascent, unfortunately not having a successful landing. It did seem a little bit hard, and I don't want to speculate too much, but it maybe seemed a little off-center, and maybe there was too much of an angle coming down that maybe one of the legs got hurt and got the crush core pushed in too far on one side. I don't know. I'm also not sure what the swells are doing in the LZ right now.
Right. It could have been a C-state thing for all we know.
Absolutely.
Right.
We're just mentioning possibilities. We want to be clear. We're not trying to speculate prematurely. We'll wait for any information from SpaceX on what went down there. But either way, y'all are watching live. We're watching live. We're trying to just sort of talk about scrubbed off.
Here's the replay.
Oh, yep. It looked like a good landing to me, but maybe I'm just a dum-dum.
And our lovely commentary with it, too.
I hate my voice. Here we go. Let's watch. There was a sort of an abrupt cut. We didn't necessarily see the touchdown.
Did it bounce a little bit? Like, do we see a little bit of a bounce?
Let's look again.
It looked like it hit hard.
Is that why it cut so quick? There go the legs deploying. They look like they deployed fine.
That's a lot of fire at the end there.
Yeah, that almost seems like the Merlin wasn't too happy and it wasn't scrubbing off enough speed.
Could be.
Or it looked almost like a potential fire after landing there too. It's hard to tell, but that flame going that high is not nominal.
Yeah, there's usually some residual fire after landing as the engines purge and all of that. But yeah, you know what? I want to refrain from speculating too much. I do want to point out what it is that we saw. I'm glad that we did that. But we will wait for more information from SpaceX themselves before we make any calls there. But clearly, 1062 suffering an anomaly on landing, and we'll hopefully hear some more about that from SpaceX themselves. Either way, seems like the Starlink satellites are in a happy orbit, right?
That's what counts at the end of the day.
They'll have one more burn to do, and that usually comes at about T plus 55-ish minutes, and that will be SES-2, and that burn should last a couple seconds to get it into its final deployment orbit, where they will then release the 21 Starlink satellites, including the 13 with direct-to-cell capability.
Good deal. Well, a little bit of a unique one tonight.
This isn't your ordinary Starlink, I told you.
You were right.
Starlinks do be hitting different.
And 1062 hit the drone ship pretty hard.
Hit it a little bit different, honestly.
Yeah, it hit it pretty different.
Goodness gracious. Well, we have some replays coming down the pipe, so stand by for that. In the meantime, Jack, New Zealand, thank you so much for the support. They say thank you from Canterbury, New Zealand. Fearless Studios, thank you for the support as well. They say, what excites you most in the next 4 months? Booster catch. Max, what excites you most in the next 4 months?
Twofold. Polaris Dawn EVA and booster catch.
Oh, I should have said Polaris Dawn EVA. That was a good answer. D, what excites you most in the next 4 months?
I'm going to be a broken record here, but Polaris Dawn in the EVA and the booster catch.
What about New Glenn?
I was just going to say that was mine.
That's also making the assumption that it flies in the next 4 months.
That's fair. Sawyer?
I was going to say New Glenn's based off of current schedules, at least. And Crew 9, actually.
Oh, that's going to be a good one.
The uniqueness of launching from 40 for the first time for a NASA mission with crew.
Right, launching with 2 crew members on the sort of a rescue mission sort of deal. I don't know if rescue mission is the right way to put it, but yeah.
With 2 empty seats for Butch and Sunny.
Right. Man's on Mars, thanks for the super chat there. They say, how many burgers could you cook within the SpaceX barge landing zone?
About that many.
Yeah, enough.
Are
enough
we talking
burgers.
Eric burgers or beef burgers?
Oh my God, Sawyer. Connor G, thank you for the super chat. They say Starlink 9.5 from Vandenberg in a few hours will hopefully be, of course I still love yous, 100th landing. Hopefully. I'm sort of wondering,
successful in a row.
Will they still launch the Vandenberg one? Like, this was a secondary objective on the landing of the booster for this. Do they need to do an investigation? I'm very curious as to what happens next. Man's on Mars, thank you for the super chat. They say, oh, Lord, it was a kaiju. And JC Davis, thank you for the support. They say, it looks like they ruptured something on landing, which may have been hard. Rest in peace, 1062. Thanks for the flight. Indeed. Wow, Alex in our back channel saying this is the very first failed landing attempt for a short fall of gravitas. It had a perfect run until now. Oh, I almost feel bad.
It was 81 in a row, I believe, or 82 in a row.
Wow.
There's this saying out there, there's those who have and those who will. And a short fall of gravitas has had its day.
Yeah, and it's tricky, right? Like, I don't want to just brush under the rug that there was an anomaly on landing on this one. It's not meaningless. At the same time, it's so not the end of the world. This booster had flown 23 times, and that is part of this envelope expansion for Falcon 9 and part of SpaceX learning exactly what it means to operate reusable vehicles. And
in fact,
it's
sorry
not something
to cut you off, Jack.
No, you're good.
SpaceX just tweeted, actually. After a successful ascent, Falcon 9's first stage booster tipped over following touchdown on a short fall of gravitas drone ship. Teams are assessing the booster's flight data and status, and this was the booster's 23rd launch. Lots to unpack there, lots to speculate and think about, but really we just have to wait and see what SpaceX opts to tell us about what happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just, once again, goes it goes to show that spaceflight is hard. And, you can land a booster 22 times and 23rd time, unfortunately not the charm. But you know what? I bet SpaceX launches another Falcon 9 for the 23rd time in not too much time. And I bet it sticks the landing. I mean, come on. They make landings look easy most of the time. Tonight was quite an exception.
Absolutely.
It looked easy until it tipped over.
Yeah, right. And there is the post from SpaceX there. Again, after a successful ascent, Falcon 9's first stage booster tipped over following touchdown on a short fall of gravitas drone ship. Teams are assessing the booster's flight data and status. This was the booster's 23rd launch. Status of the booster is that it's in pieces, I think is the assessment there, unfortunately.
It's swimming.
Part of it's swimming. Part of it's fish food.
Part of it's probably still on the deck of the drone ship.
That's going to make a very interesting drone ship return when it makes it back to port.
You beat me to it. That's what I was just about to say.
Definitely keep your eyes on Space Coast Live, and definitely keep your eyes on NASA Spaceflight socials. Follow Max, follow D, follow Sawyer, follow Julia, follow NASA Spaceflight if you're not already. I don't know why you wouldn't be, but we will keep you posted as we hear more. Either way, here are some replays, some beautiful views from the press site tonight. And despite the anomaly on landing, the primary mission was a success, and that is what we should all keep in mind. Landings of Falcon 9s, even though they become routine, are a bonus. The main goal, of course, is to send payloads into space, which it did admirably. Let's take a look at some more replay angles here. Here's one from the port. I believe, is that a Falcon 9 or is that a crane? No, that's a crane.
That's just a big crane, yeah.
But that is where they process Falcon 9s when they come back in.
We're talking about rockets. We're not talking about birds.
I don't even... Crane... Is that a pun? Is that a bird pun? Kevin. He's not even going to defend himself.
He already knows.
He knows what he did. Excellent views from the port there. Always love to see how rocket launches turn night into day.
Beautiful.
Dee, how was this one for you? Was it a good launch?
I feel bad saying that this was a really good launch after the landing attempt, but the sound in particular on this one was spectacular. We're positioned slightly differently at the press site, so we got a lot of the VAB squeal from our location, and it turned out to be a pretty clear night here on the Space Coast.
Yeah, the VAB squeal really came through on the audio tonight, which, of course, I am a fan of. Max, how are you feeling? It was a great track on your part. Like, seriously, fantastic work.
I mean, I think it was okay, considering the fact my arms were covered in mosquitoes for a lot of the time. Like, there's nothing like trying to keep the camera nice and steady on Falcon 9 as it's ascending, especially higher and higher into the sky, and a mosquito works its way in between your fingers and just sinks its spike into you and just...
Proboscis.
Is it proboscis?
I don't know.
Is that even a word?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't have a fancy bee suit like D, but what I do have is 100% DEET bug spray. But your mileage may vary on if you actually want to spray yourself with 100% DEET. It kind of like makes me go numb wherever it touches on my body. But you know what?
And damages AirPods.
It also, yes, it also damages. Fantastic Oh, look at that one. That's a good one. You love to see it. Good
By the way,
deal.
I do want to mention, just really quickly, even though we didn't have Polaris Dawn tonight, Jared Isaacman did comment on the booster landing failure, saying 1062 had an amazing run, and I concur.
Absolutely. I mean, we said it all already. The landing is a secondary objective. Of course you want it to go well. Sometimes it's not going to go well. That's just the nature of expanding the envelope with a 23rd flight for our first time with a Falcon 9 booster. And that's just how it goes sometimes. It's how you learn. But yeah, Dee, thank you so much for being on tonight's stream. I believe we have a slow-mo replay from you coming up here. Thank you for that as well. Always love having you on, buddy.
Absolutely, always love to be here.
Good deal. Well, I'm always happy when you have a camera in your hand. Just keep bacon out of your hands because you're notorious for burning it. Max, thank you for being on tonight's stream, and thank you for the excellent track as well.
Hey, and you know what? This is why we cover every single mission that we can, because you never know what could happen. You never know, especially with these super high flight boosters, and they're only going to keep rising in terms of their flight time. So pleasure as always sharing space with you folks, and we will hopefully see you in just a couple of days for the launch of Polaris Dawn.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Max. And, of course, Sawyer. Sawyer, my guy, we love you. Thanks for being on.
Well, thank you. No, it's always a pleasure to be on. and you never know what's going to happen on these late night Starlink. So we appreciate everyone staying awake, joining us, and yeah, next up, hopefully, Polaris Dawn.
Indeed. We just flashed DOS's information there. Follow DOS, because he's awesome. That's me, though. I'm Jack. You can see my Twitter and whatnot. People don't care about me. Kevin, show yourself. Kevin, thank you for operating tonight's stream. We appreciate you. Even if you have bad takes about Ship 26. You know, not everyone's right all the time. I thought that might goad Kevin into talking, but no, Kevin just wants to rap.
I was just trying to be nice. It's a sad night, you know.
It is, you know, but it's not the end of the world. Like, yes, it's a bummer. There was an anomaly on landing, but you know what? So it goes. And similarly, here goes a nice slow-mo replay from D. Let's watch this awesome footage and say goodbye to B 1060. 1062, thank you.
1062, yeah.
1062. I'm an idiot. Absolutely gorgeous.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside ST off. Bring in ST off. Off. It's orange!
R45.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.